Yeah. So my name is Liam, and I found out about the gym actually through a friend. He basically, I didn't know you guys were opening up a Starting Strength gym. I've known about Starting Strength for a while, but I knew that, like, or he told me that, hey, we're doing this they have a Starting Strength gym that's opening up in Beaverton. I was like, really? So as soon as I knew about that, I was like, okay, I'm going to sign up. So yeah, so my starting weights, my squat was about 185. My bench was, I think, 145. I'm not super confident about that. My press was like 75 pounds, and then my deadlift was, I think around maybe, I think it was just shy of 225, but I could be wrong about that. So as of today, and I'm looking at the board back here that has my numbers, so, oh no, it has the records, so I need to wait for it. No. Today I squatted 260 pounds. I pressed 100 pounds. Not yesterday, but on Monday I bench pressed 170, and then my deadlift today was 300. Yeah, it was still barbell training. I'd known about Mark Ripeto's work for a very long time, but it was also heavily supplemented with a lot of like corrective exercises, a lot of resistance band things, some dumbbell stuff. Not like to just improve my biceps, but things like, oh well, I see that your rear delt is out of balance, so you've got to train that, and a lot of things like that. A lot of like mobility drills and things like that. So it was still it was basically barbell plus a lot of extra stuff. It's the core of it was still the same, squat, press, deadlift, bench press, but it's cut out a lot of useless stuff. I think that, and this is just, I'm not speaking as an expert here, but I think I was doing a lot of that stuff because, one, I was, I didn't have a coach that was telling me how to do things right, and so I think it was compensating for things that I shouldn't have had to in the first place, right? And it's much more efficient. It's, you're just doing the barbell stuff, and I think it just cuts out all of the excess stuff that helps you work up a sweat and makes you feel good, but it doesn't actually do anything for you. I have noticed. So an interesting one is, as far as like my actual lifts go and the movement that I'm doing, I would say that the biggest one has been I've been utilizing my quads a lot more, right? And I mentioned this to Coach Amanda earlier that like we have these gigantic muscles on the front of our legs, and I hadn't been using them ever, and so I tried to follow all these cues and whatnot where it's like, if you use your legs, it's bad, So that's been one very practical thing that I've noticed. But as the weight has gone up, I think that in a lot of ways, like it's strange because it's like my form's gotten better too. As much as it like sometimes I don't know quite how to describe this, but it's like you have moments where it's not so good, right? Because like the first time you do 260, it's like the shock hits you, and it's but then it just feels like when you're doing the lifts right, I mean, it just feels like it's easier to do them right in some sense. I don't quite know how to explain it. But I hope that. Right, and that's the big one is the coaching is there, and I'm able to identify cues or identify problems with my form that Coach Amanda and Alec can tell me that like, hey, fix this or fix that. So certainly as the weight's gone up, there's that. And then also maybe I should add too that one thing that I've noticed or I've not noticed is like before I started coming to Starting Strength, I had to use like knee wraps, and I'm using a weight belt right now, but that's beforehand I would do that because I was like, oh, if I don't have it, then this it's not going to be good. I'm going to lose my grip. So I've noticed it's like just a lack of extra stuff that I've had to do, which has been really awesome. Specifically the knee wraps, because I'd always like feel it in my right knee in particular, and then so we're squatting 185, I better wrap that knee up, right? And so I haven't had to do that since, and now we're hitting 260 and all these other weights, and so it's incredible. It's like it's a sense of liberation. It's really just like I don't have to. I actually feel like when I was weight training, it was actually making me weaker when I was doing it wrong. Oh yeah, I was like here I am, I'm 25 years old. And I feel like my body's kind of breaking apart, but I've been told that you got to do the barbell stuff, so I'm going to keep kind of stubbornly doing it. And thankfully, I've stuck with it. But I did really feel a sense of like, oh my gosh, I'm just like, my back's not feeling good. There's a nasty thing happening with my shoulders, my knees, bad. And it's like, you shouldn't be feeling that way, certainly at, my age, but you shouldn't, I mean, your training shouldn't be killing you, you know what I mean? It should be making you stronger. So it was like the fact that I'd have to like wrap up and do all of these things. And, I could see why you would do that if you were like a power lifter that's hitting a world record. but I'm not that. I'm just a regular Joe. Well, certainly I've gotten stronger. I've noticed that. Like, wow, I've noticed. Yeah. I'd like to believe I've gotten bigger too a little bit. I haven't measured anything. I'd like to believe, and it's not just getting bigger in my gut. Yeah, yeah. Certainly, I think put on a little bit of muscle. I think mostly my legs too, because with a lot of my squatting and my deadlifts, I'm actually using these giant muscles that are here for a very specific reason that I was never utilizing before. So, yeah, I would say that's probably the most notable change. It was one of the things too is I had certain records that I had hit before doing starting strength. I think my working deadlift was like 255, 265. It was something like that. And before starting strength, that was what I was doing. And then so when we first started, it was okay. I went a little bit lighter than that, but very quickly surpassed that to now it's 300. And I mean, well, one I'll say, okay, so there's two. One is there's a sense of terror when you first wake up, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm like, why don't I just lay in bed a little bit longer? First one is usually in the mornings, the day that I'm working out. It's this feeling of absolute terror that like, oh no, I got to go and I got to squat that. And I think, funny enough, I don't think. I mean, it's probably, obviously it's because of the weight, but I think it's also, too, a product of before I was actually doing starting strength, that it was like those weights were weights that were causing me to, tear something, or not tear, but, pull a muscle in my back or mess up my knee or something like that. So I'm, thinking, oh, my goodness, I'm going to do this work that's going to kill me. And then, of course, there's the exceeding feeling of joy that I get afterwards when I'm, having accomplished the weights. Although I will say I don't get that if I didn't have a good set. It's like, oh, my last set on my deadlift was bad, so now the rest of my weekend's bad and everything like that. But I have certainly felt a sense of immense, or not immense, but just much more self-confidence. I just feel like I'm more composed and I'm more relaxed, and not because I don't want to get too animalistic, but it's like a sense of well, I just pulled all this weight, and so I kind of don't get as stressed out about situations because it's like, well, I'm dealing with this, in some sense, dealing with this stress a lot every day. So it's like if I deal with something at school, I'm like, oh, this is nothing, Right. Like I had almost a near-death situation, at 12 o'clock last Monday, right? So, but yeah, I would say in short, just an immense sense of just self-confidence. That's nothing I felt before. Yeah, just a sense like, oh, I have this thing in my life that I have to do. It's really good for me. So I have to get out of bed this morning, and I've got to deal with, get organized in the morning and have a good routine. And so in that sense too, maybe that's not so much a psychological thing, but just being more organized in general, I think it's helped with that. But yeah, I would say in sum, it's the psychology that's just really improved. And this is actually kind of a personal one for me too, because I've been trying to convince my father to come out and do this. And I think the big thing that people think is that, oh, this is for power lifters and world record people and something like that. And it's today, obviously there's really big guys. They have this board up here where here, Jim Clare just deadlifted, was it 600 pounds or something insane like that. So there's certainly that part of it, right? It's going to attract those people. But today, one of the guys we work out with, he's 70 years old, and so he's not squatting 300 pounds here, not yet, but he's very fit, and so it's for everyone. And that's the big thing about starting strength, that it's this is not aimed for people who are looking to hit world records per se, but what it is, but on the other hand, it's also not oh, this is just some foo-foo nonsense. This is how you do right. This is how you do real strength training that everybody can benefit from. And so this is, again, it's for everybody of all ages and all sizes and all backgrounds. And it's such a beautiful thing, because this is how you do right strength training. This is for the correct way to do it. And I can't stress that enough. That's one I'm excited to see, is how my, last year, unfortunately, I didn't get to do a lot of hiking because I was busy moving in the summer and all this stuff. But this year, I am really looking forward to, when the weather's getting better. And actually, we've had an unbelievably mild winter, so it might even be, very soon here. But yeah, a lot of it, I admit, remains to be seen. But of course, I could say just physical things, just walking around and getting up, and I don't feel one is even, and this is a sign, especially before, when I mentioned earlier that oh, my working out is actually killing me in some sense. I don't want to be too dramatic, but that's how it felt. And it would be things I'd wake up, my lower back's all stiff, and oh, my knee isn't feeling right, this shoulder's off. And I just don't get that anymore. So just like day-to-day life physically feels much more bearable. And thank you. And it's just, and so I've got to believe that's gonna carry on, as you get older. And that's why starting strength is for everyone. It's like, do your knees and your back and just your right now I'm a little hunched over, so your spine, do everything a favor, and like you're meant to train this way. I mean, you really are meant to be this way. And so the biggest one is people around you to encourage you and to check your form and have that third set of eyes, like professionals too. Like that's the big one to me. It was the coaching, because if it was just for the barbell, it's like I've got a barbell at home. But that's the big one, is like it's one thing to squat, it's another thing to squat properly, and just having people. So that's something I really do like. And of course, it's a sense of camaraderie and a sense of like we're a family here that I really like too. So I really look forward to seeing everybody and seeing Letty. I don't know where Letty's going. But I think that's what it is. I think it's the social aspect of it. I mean, certainly with COVID and everything going on, it's having a home gym obviously was nice, but like spending a few days at home, you get very stir crazy. And yeah. So probably not really, but I maybe I'll just use this time to just re-emphasize, just like I can't say it enough, like if you're debating it, if you're saying, should I check out Starting Strength, if there's one, please just go check out their open house, go for a day and give it a shot. I think it's going to be so good for anyone who does it, no matter who you are or where you're from or anything or what your situation is. This is going to fix so many problems. I can just tell you. So I can't say it enough. And I'm so grateful that we finally got a Starting Strength gym on the west side, no less. Usually these things are on the east side.
That's right.
So that's really awesome.